Stop everything you're doing right now, before this knowledge gets buried again. Listen, what if I told you there exists a forbidden manual, an ancient whisper passed down in secrecy, that reveals what your soul actually hears the moment you die? Not a metaphor, not a vision, but actual sounds, voices, echoes from beyond. Some call them celestial tones, others warnings. But those who've come close to death, who've stood on the edge, say it's not silence that greets you. It's a message. And missing it could trap you in the eternal cycle of death and rebirth. Forever. This isn't just a theory. We're talking about a manuscript so rare, its very reading was once reserved for monks during the sacred rites of the dead. A book that claims to guide your soul through its final journey, step by step. And today, you're going to hear what it says. But be warned. Once you know this, there's no unknowing it. Let's begin. Forget everything you've been told about death, because in that first moment, when the body ceases, when the breath stops, and the heart falls still, what greets you is not blackness, not silence, not a void. It's a sound, but not the kind of sound you hear with your ears. This one rises from within, a low, endless vibration, like the soft rumble beneath the earth before an earthquake. Ancient texts call it the first frequency, the tone that signals to the soul that the material world has released its grip. At first, it's subtle, like the echo of something that was always there, but buried beneath the noise of life, traffic, conversation, worry, desire. But now that the noise has vanished, this primal hum comes forward. It doesn't ask for attention. It demands it. Those who've returned from near-death experiences often speak of it without knowing what they're describing. A buzz, a hum, a presence that wasn't seen, but felt. It's not a hallucination. It's an alarm clock for the soul. And in the Forbidden Manual, only read aloud in the presence of the dying, it's described as the doorway sound. The moment your soul is called to awaken. But here's the catch. If you resist it, if you cling to the silence you expected, you might miss the only clue that you're not alone. The first frequency isn't just a transition signal, it's a test. If your soul recognizes the vibration as familiar, a sacred memory stirs, a sense that you've been here before, that this isn't the end, it's the return. But most don't recognize it. Most recoil, confused by the stillness of their surroundings. They expect silence. They expect nothingness. So when something speaks, not in words but in pure resonance, they shut it out. That rejection seals the path forward. Because the first frequency fades quickly. It offers only one invitation, and if you don't listen, if you don't feel, it slips away, like the last note of a song you barely remember. And then, the real descent begins. So now ask yourself, if you stood at the edge of death, would you know how to listen? Or would you miss the first and most vital sound your soul was waiting to hear? Once the first frequency fades, the world doesn't grow quieter, it becomes stranger. What follows is not a sound in the traditional sense. It is a voice, but not like any voice you've ever heard. It doesn't come from outside of you. It doesn't echo through the void. It rises from somewhere deeper, from a place that feels older than time, and it speaks your true name. Not the name given at birth, not the name used by lovers, family, or friends. This is the name you forgot the moment you were born. The name your soul has always carried, hidden beneath layers of identity and noise. The Forbidden Manual refers to it as the vibration of origin, a sequence of syllables not uttered with sound, but with being. When this voice calls you, it does so with perfect recognition. Not as a stranger, not as a judge, but as something that has always known you. It doesn't ask, it doesn't command, it simply is. Return, it whispers. Remember, you were never this body, you are what watches it. For the prepared soul, This moment is sacred. It's the beginning of remembrance. A wave of knowing rushes through the soul, not just of this life, but of every life. Everything makes sense, even if only for a second. But for most, the reaction is fear. Because hearing that voice means accepting that the life you lived was just a mask. And when that mask begins to fall, ego panics. The illusion cracks, and many retreat. Some beg for silence. Some try to scream, but there is no mouth, only mind. And the voice that called to you begins to fade. This is the first real fork in the road. If you embrace the voice, if you allow its ancient sound to settle into your soul, you begin the journey inward, toward awakening. But if you reject it, if you cling to the name you used in life, the path curves, the descent begins. You fall further from the light of remembrance and into the dreamscape of confusion. And that's when the other voices begin. But none of them will know your name, not like that one did. The voice that called your name is gone now, but its silence does not bring peace. Instead, something begins to rise. Not a presence, but a memory. Not a thought, but a sound. A strange chorus, quiet at first, like whispers drifting across a canyon. And as they grow louder, you realize they're coming from you. These are the echoes of the unsaid. Every word you swallowed, every apology you never gave, every moment when the truth sat heavy on your tongue and you said nothing. They return, not to haunt you, but to be heard. The Forbidden Manual says this is the chamber of echoes, a space in the soul's passage where sound becomes judgment, not from any god, but from your own being. You are the witness, you are the judge, and the words you left behind, they now demand to be heard. Some come softly, a missed goodbye, a forgotten thank you. They arrive like gentle rain, stirring a quiet ache in the soul. Others, though, strike like thunder. The sharp words spoken in anger, the silence when someone needed your voice, the lie you told yourself so many times you forgot it was ever a lie. There is no hiding here. These echoes wrap around you, not as punishment, but as reflection. They vibrate through your essence, showing what was left incomplete, unresolved, unspoken. You feel their weight, not in guilt, but in recognition. You cannot lie to yourself in this place. Sound is truth, and truth does not flatter. And yet, there is grace here. The echoes give you a chance, not to undo, but to understand, to feel fully, for the first time, the impact of your silence. Some souls cry here, not out of fear, but because they realize the cost of every moment wasted in pride. Others remain frozen, overwhelmed by the weight of what they never said. But for a few, for the truly courageous, this becomes a turning point. They listen, they accept, and in that surrender, the echoes soften, because what was once unsaid has finally been heard, and the soul, a little lighter, begins to move forward, toward the next sound in the sequence, one even more personal, one even more dangerous. You might think memory fades after death, but it doesn't. It sings. Here, in the strange in-between, memories are not images. They do not appear as visions or flickers on a screen. They unfold as music, your life transformed into a living symphony. And you are both the composer and the listener. The Forbidden Manual calls this stage the harmonic unraveling, a moment when your soul is wrapped in sound, chords made of choices, harmonies woven from joy and sorrow, dissonance born from cruelty and kindness. Every action you've taken now has a note. It begins with your earliest moments. The laughter of childhood returns as soft chimes. The warmth of a mother's touch hums like a cello. But just as quickly, the notes darken. A betrayal echoes in a sharp, minor key. The scream you ignored shudders like a cracked drum. Moments you thought forgotten resurface. Not to shame you, but to show you. Because this is your truth. Not the story you told others, not the one you believed, but the emotional frequency of your life laid bare in resonance. And here's the strange thing. There is no narrator, no judgment, no voice guiding the way, just sound. You don't think about the memories, you feel them. A kind act resonates like a warm, rising scale. A missed opportunity hangs in silence, more deafening than noise. Everything is vibrationally accurate. Nothing is edited. The soul cannot lie in song. Some weep here, not because of what they did, but because of how clearly they finally understand it. Not intellectually, but spiritually. Others hear beauty in places they never expected, how their kindness shaped someone's life in ways they never knew. These realizations bloom like violins rising out of shadow, and for some, the music is nearly unbearable, too sharp, too broken. These souls try to flee, to quiet the melody, but there is no escape. The music must be heard to be released, and only then does the soul learn the most powerful truth. You are the sound of everything you've ever done. You are the music of every moment you gave or withheld, and the only way to change your song is to keep listening. You have heard the echoes. You have faced the music. But now, something changes. The space around you shifts. Time, if it existed here, seems to pause. Everything slows, and then you feel it. A tone, pure, unwavering, infinite. It doesn't come toward you. It comes through you, as if the fabric of the universe is humming, and your soul is being asked to match its note. This is the gate. The forbidden manual names it the sound of crossing, and it's not just a metaphor. This tone is a barrier, a threshold, a line between realms. If you can match it, if your soul can vibrate in resonance, you pass through effortlessly. But if you fall out of tune, if your essence clashes with the note, you are cast back into the storm of illusions. And here's the mystery. The tone doesn't punish you. It's not sentient. It doesn't care if you succeed or fail. It is simply a frequency of pure balance. You either align with it, or you don't. Some describe it as a golden drone. Others hear it as the ringing of a sacred bell that never stops. But everyone agrees. It's the most beautiful, terrifying sound they've ever encountered. Because it reflects you back at yourself. Your fears create static. Your regrets disrupt the wave. Your peace? That's what lets the resonance settle. The prepared soul, calm, open, stripped of ego, hears the tone and melts into it. There's no struggle. They remember the note, and they cross. But those who resist, who hold on to identity, control, or guilt, experience the tone as pressure, even pain. Like standing too close to something too real. Their souls distort, crack, recoil. And the gate? It closes. This is the point of no return. The forbidden teachings warn. If you fail to align with the tone, you are not punished. You are returned, to try again. Another life, another body, another forgetting. Because the gate does not judge, it filters. And so the question becomes, can you remember who you are without being told? Can you let go of everything you thought you needed and simply resonate with truth? Because if not, the cycle continues. After the gate, silence again, but not the kind you welcome. It's a silence that presses, that waits for you to realize something is now listening to you, and then the frequency begins to shift. But this time, it's not the universe speaking to you. It's the universe reflecting you back. The forbidden manual calls this the mirror frequency, a vibrational loop in which your soul no longer receives sound. It emits it, not consciously, not willingly, but naturally, involuntarily. What does your soul sound like when it's not hiding behind flesh? What does your essence broadcast when stripped of language, pride, and control? This is the moment when the truth you projected in life becomes audible to everything. And what's revealed is not always beautiful. You hear what others heard from you, the tone of your presence, the way you made people feel. Not what you said, but what your energy left behind. Every conversation you forgot, every mood you never noticed, now plays back as a score composed by your own soul. Did you bring peace into rooms? Your frequency will now sing with warmth. Did you poison spaces with bitterness? Then your vibration trembles with tension, dissonance, interruption. There is no hiding in this space. This is where the mirror turns vibrational. The soul becomes its own radio tower. Every intention, real or fake, becomes clear in the waveform. And you, at last, hear the truth of your own impact. Some souls glow with harmony here. They are surprised, moved. They realize their quiet compassion rang louder than they ever knew. Others fall to their knees, figuratively, because now they hear the noise they left behind, the residue of harm, the static of neglect. It's not punishment. It's not judgment. It's reverberation. The energy you gave the world now returns, like a wave bouncing off the walls of eternity. And in this moment, many souls make a vow, not with words, but with vibration. If I go back, I will be better. But some never leave this loop, trapped in the sound of what they were too afraid to become. Because the mirror frequency does not lie, it simply plays you back. Just when you think you've heard everything, your own name, your memories, your karma, your echoes, something unexpected stirs, not within you, around you. The space becomes heavier, more alert, as if you're no longer alone. And then, barely perceptible at first, a new vibration slips through the silence. It is not music, not a voice, not even a message. It's awareness. You are being watched. The Forbidden Manual calls them the witnesses between realms. Others call them the watchers. They do not judge, intervene, or punish. They do not care what God you prayed to, what sins you carried, or what title you bore in life. They are older than belief, older than fear. They only want one thing, to see if you remember. You won't see them with eyes. You won't hear them with ears. Their presence is a soft pulse in the back of your mind, like a flicker behind a curtain you never noticed was there. And then, a whisper. It may sound like a parent, a friend, a stranger's voice you once heard in a dream, or your own voice from a childhood you can't quite place. It says, you are close. That's it. Not good job, not you're worthy, just you are close. Because proximity is not progress. Here's the truth the ancient texts hid in metaphor. The watchers don't lead you. They observe. They measure your alignment, your clarity, not as punishment, but as calibration. They are the final resonance check before the next veil lifts. Some souls feel comfort here. They sense the watchers as protectors, guardians of the threshold. Others panic. They feel exposed, naked, seen in a way they weren't ready for. Because here, nothing is hidden. You cannot pretend. You cannot perform. You either are or you aren't. And the watchers? They do not speak again. If you vibrate with truth, they fade gently. The path continues. If your signal is scattered, distorted by fear, guilt, or false identity, they remain. Their presence grows heavier, and the whisper becomes stillness, awaiting silence. For you, to realign. So now the question is not, are you being judged? It's, are you finally ready to be seen? By now, the soul has faced sound, memory, vibration, and observation. But one door still remains. It does not open with keys. It does not respond to pleading. It opens with weight. Karma. And here, it doesn't appear as myth or moral lesson. It arrives as sound. The Forbidden Manual calls this stage the resonance of accumulation. It is the moment when every action, thought, and intention you've ever had plays back, not as memory, but as a mechanism, a clicking, a shifting, a vast cosmic lock turning in response to the sum of your being. You don't see your karma. You hear it. Imagine the soft groan of ancient gears, the tension of strings winding, a door sealed for lifetimes, responding to the pressure of your choices. Each decision from your life, spoken, hidden, or half-formed, now contributes to a grand equation. Did you act from love or fear? Did you take more than you gave? Did you carry pain without passing it on? These things matter now, not in judgment, but in physics. Karma here isn't punishment, it's frequency management. Your energy patterns shape the corridor ahead. Every vibration becomes a key or a chain, and then a tone. You may not recognize it, but your soul does. This is the pitch of your current alignment, the blueprint of what must unfold next. If your frequency is clean, focused, balanced, you will hear a clear note, a rising tone that opens paths of clarity, healing, maybe even liberation. But if you're fragmented, if you denied, repressed, or fled from truth, your note warbles. It trembles, the sound staggers, and with it your soul is redirected. Some are gently nudged back into the cycle. Others fall like stones. The tone never lies. It cannot be bargained with. And the scariest part? You'll feel the accuracy, the uncanny precision of your karma playing out in front of you, not as reward or punishment, but as reflection. Because karma is not a judge, it's an echo. It's your soul's shadow, humming back what you've put into the world. And in this chamber, where nothing is forgotten, one law remains unbreakable. What you send out is what calls you home. You think you've heard all the voices, your own, the watchers, the echoes of karma. But then something else begins, so sudden, so quiet, you almost miss it. A murmur, like wind moving through 1,000 leaves. But these are not leaves, they are names, and every name belongs to someone you forgot. This is what the Forbidden Manual calls the chorus of the forgotten, the voices of those whose lives you touched in passing, people you overlooked, strangers whose pain you never saw, background characters in the drama of your life. But to them, you were not background. You were the storm, or the shelter. And now, as your soul hovers in this great in-between, they sing, not to blame you, not to punish, but to witness you. Their song is strange, not melody, not speech. It's more like vibration, wrapped in memory. Each voice delivers a word, one word, the single most powerful thing you left behind in their world. To one, your word might be comfort. To another, indifference. To someone else, betrayal. And perhaps, to one who loved you silently, hope. The voices don't rise in accusation. They harmonize, they weave, like threads of every moment you didn't realize mattered. And for the first time, you understand what it meant to exist in other people's stories. Some souls tremble here, not from guilt, but from awe. They hear beauty where they expected silence, a kind word they forgot giving, a gesture that saved someone's spirit, and they realize nothing is ever truly lost. Others collapse into weeping. Because now they feel it, the pain they caused without noticing, the kindness they withheld, the emptiness they left behind. This is not judgment. This is not punishment. This is the mirror of presence. It reveals not who you thought you were, but who you were when no one was watching. And here's the deepest truth. You too are part of someone else's chorus right now. Your actions, your presence, they echo. Even if no one says a word, even if they never saw your face again. The chorus of the forgotten doesn't ask for forgiveness. It sings for one reason, so you remember, before the next sound calls you deeper. You've crossed memory, music, echoes, frequencies, but now something changes, a pulse, not from beyond, but from below. Suddenly, you hear something. Alive. It's not celestial, not ancient. It's recent, immediate, present. It's the sound of the living. Those still in the world you just left, your loved ones, your friends, even your enemies, are now reaching for you. Not with hands, not with words, but with feeling. This is what the Forbidden Manual calls the vibrations of attachment, a sacred moment where the soul, now untethered, becomes temporarily sensitive to the grief, love, prayers, and thoughts of the world it departed, and you hear them, not as sentences, but as waves. A child's whisper, "I miss you, Dad." A sister's prayer, "Please don't be gone." A lover's silence, soaked in unshed tears. Their pain becomes vibration, their longing a heartbeat, their voices a rhythm in the ether. And you, disembodied yet aware, feel the pull, not as nostalgia, but as gravity. Many souls stop here. Some turn around. They try to return to the ones they left behind, to reach through the veil, to cling to the familiar pulse of the world. But they cannot go back, not fully, because the gate closed the moment the breath ended. Now, only presence remains. The manual warns, to linger here is to forget the path forward. And yet, it's tempting, because the living do not just send sorrow, they send love, pure, raw, radiant, the kind that has no need for words, the kind that echoes beyond the grave. And in rare cases, that love can lift. It becomes a light that stabilizes the soul, reminding it that it was loved, that it made a difference, that its life mattered. But clinging to that love is dangerous. Love, like grief, can become an anchor, and anchors don't rise. So you must decide, right here, will you drift back into the pulse of what once was, or will you rise, carried by their love, but not owned by it, because they are still breathing, and you are becoming something else? The path forward demands release, and the next sound will test whether you're ready for it. You've heard the voices of the living, felt the pull of love, the ache of longing, but now the tone changes again, not to beauty, not to peace. This next sound is sharp, repetitive, incomplete. It is the sound of loops, spiritual circuits left open, stories half-written, emotions buried alive. The Forbidden Manual names this phase the Chamber of the Unresolved. It is here that every unfinished cycle begins to vibrate and demand attention. It starts small, a quiet tapping, a single offbeat rhythm that grows louder as the soul tries to ignore it. But the more you resist, the more intense the sound becomes, a promise broken, a word withheld, a truth you feared, a lesson you avoided. Each begins to pulse with its own frequency. Together, they form a dissonant harmony, music that never resolves, a song without a final chord. This is not punishment. This is your soul's to-do list. In life, you might have buried these things beneath distraction, beneath routine, beneath ego. But here, stripped of identity, they surface like open wounds. Some souls try to outrun the sound. They want to skip forward, bypass the pain. But the manual warns, what is unfinished in one life becomes the blueprint of the next. These vibrations are not erased, they are recycled. A resentment you never healed becomes a pattern. A lie you told yourself becomes a blind spot. A fear you avoided becomes your next starting point. Unless you listen, because here lies the hidden mercy of this chamber. Every unresolved cycle is offering a chance to see it, feel it, accept it, and in that awareness, it can dissolve. Not instantly, not all at once, but with humility, some of these sounds begin to soften, to fade, because what truly haunts us is not what we did wrong, it's what we refused to complete. This chamber is sacred not because of its discomfort, but because of what it offers, closure. But only if you're willing to feel everything you fled. The loops you left behind are calling. They do not want your shame. They want your attention, because to rise you must lighten your sound, and nothing weighs the soul down more than an unfinished song. Then it stops, all of it. The loops, the echoes, the calls, the music, gone. You expect the next sound to rise, but nothing comes, only stillness. This is not the silence of peace. It is the invitation to silence, a sacred pause described in the Forbidden Manual as the soul's most overlooked test. Because here, for the first time since death, nothing reaches for you, and that terrifies most. You see, we're creatures of noise, of distraction. Even in death, we seek instruction, something to react to. We expect the universe to keep speaking, but now it simply listens. And the silence? It does not comfort. It asks. It asks one question, without words, without tone. Can you be without becoming? Because this space is not emptiness, it's potential. It is the raw field where soul meets source, not in ceremony, but in stillness, where there is no story, no identity, no sound, only presence. Some souls collapse here. They feel abandoned, forgotten, left to drift in nothingness. They panic, and in their panic they make noise, reaching back to the echoes of memory, the pulse of the living, the gravity of what was. But those who are ready, those who can rest in the absence, begin to merge, not into light, not into God, into truth, because silence is the voice of your original self, the you before names, before thought, before incarnation. And if you can surrender to it, something happens, a second heartbeat, not yours, but the universe's, a slow, steady rhythm, not a voice but a pulse. You're not hearing it, you're becoming it. The forbidden text says, this is the moment when time no longer applies, when the soul, if still and aware, can taste eternity without entering it. Not a destination, but a remembering. And yet the choice remains. Do you embrace the silence and become its equal? Or do you fear the void and flee back into noise? Because the path forward, beyond even karma, memory, or identity, requires one thing above all: stillness without resistance. And in that stillness, the next phase begins, not with a sound, but with a chant. Out of the silence, something stirs, but it doesn't break the stillness. It emerges from it. A sound, not like music, not like memory, but like something older than both. It is rhythmic, deliberate, and impossibly ancient. The chant begins. This is no hymn, no prayer. It is a code, woven through vibration. Each syllable reverberates with a force that is not emotional, but primordial, a language the soul understands before understanding exists. The Forbidden Manual calls it the Guardian's Chant, not because it protects you from what's outside, but because it shields you from yourself. Here, at this edge of all edges, your soul begins to drift toward the next threshold, the point of no return. The chant is your anchor. It binds you to clarity, to truth, to stillness. Without it, the soul begins to fragment, pulled in 1,000 directions by the chaos of its own unresolved nature. You don't hear the chant so much as feel it. It is steady, circular, unyielding, om, hum, ka, sha, la. You may not know these syllables, but your essence does. And then something becomes clear. The chant is not for you, it is you. It reflects your inner harmony, or your discord. If you are balanced, the chant resonates through you like a tuning fork. If you are still clinging, afraid, or divided, the chant begins to break, faltering into noise. This is the test. The guardian is not a being, not a deity. It is the pattern itself, the design that governs transition, and the chant is the lock and the key. If you vibrate in tune with the chant, the path opens, effortlessly. It is as if the very fabric of the in-between recognizes your readiness. But if you resist, if fear returns, if identity clings, the chant distorts, and the passage closes. Some souls feel the moment the rhythm slips. They fall into panic, into noise, into the spiral of rebirth. But others, they listen, they breathe, they remember, and their chant holds. Because they are not passing through this realm by force, they are invited. The chant fades, not with an end, but with a dissolve, and in its place comes something stranger, language, but not one, not even dozens, all of them. Words you've never heard flood the space around your soul. Sanskrit, Sumerian, Latin, Hebrew, languages long extinct, others not even human, frequencies that once belonged to wind, stone, water, stars. The forbidden manual calls this the river of tongues, a moment when the soul passes through the full spectrum of universal speech. Every tongue ever spoken, every truth ever whispered, now flows around you like water. And none of it is random. You hear voices from lifetimes ago, from teachers who once tried to wake you, from children who asked questions you never answered, from dream figures you dismissed, from parts of yourself you buried. Each voice speaks a single phrase over and over. Do not forget your origin. Some say it gently, others shout it in thunder, some sing, some scream. But the message is always the same. Remember what you were before you were anything at all. This is not a riddle. This is a rescue. Because here, as your soul begins to float toward the final veil, you are offered one last anchor: language. Not the language of instruction, the language of recognition. If you can hear the truth in any of these voices, if you can feel their vibration and say, "Yes, that is me," you regain access to what the ancients called original awareness. But if you reject the tongues, if they frighten you, confuse you, overwhelm you, you drift further from your center. The languages clash, they tangle, they splinter into static, and your identity, already fragile, begins to crack. This is where many fall back, reborn not because of punishment, but because they could not recognize the sound of their own essence echoing back at them. But those who stay silent, who listen, who let the river speak without needing to understand, they begin to hear something beneath the noise, a single voice, their own, speaking not in words, but in origin. And when they do, the river parts, and what lies ahead is the breaking point. The next sound won't be heard. It will be felt breaking through. There comes a moment when even silence can't hold you, when language, identity, memory, all begin to fracture. This moment arrives not with sound, but with pressure. And then, it happens. The shell cracks. The forbidden manual calls this stage the shattering of the form, but the form it refers to isn't your body. That's long gone. It's your identity, the self you carried, built and defended, the ego, the persona, the mask. And now, it begins to break, not all at once. At first, it's subtle, a feeling that your name no longer fits, that your memories are no longer yours, that your desires, your roles, your achievements were just clothes you wore in a dream. Then the cracks widen. You feel pieces falling off, attachments, beliefs, fears, even hope. Some souls cling. They reach for the fragments, trying to hold on to what they were. But the more they grasp, the louder the pressure grows. A vibrational hum that rises into a scream, not outside, but within. Because this is not a punishment. It's a birth. Just like a seed must break to release life, so too must the identity split to reveal the essence underneath. This is the soul's second death. The one no one talks about. The one that leaves nothing behind but being. And here's the paradox. What breaks feels like you, but what remains is you. For some, this moment is terrifying. They feel as if they're dissolving into nothingness. But for others, those who prepared, those who surrendered, the cracking of the shell feels like liberation. It is the shedding of weight, of story, of illusion. You do not lose yourself here. You become yourself, for the first time. And as the shell crumbles completely, what remains is a pulsing, radiant awareness, silent, still, unbound. And then something stirs. Not a voice, not a tone, but a question, not asked in words, but in essence, a final mirror, waiting to reflect the soul's answer. Because what breaks next is not what you carry, it's what you've become. The shell has shattered. There are no more masks, no more names, no more noise, just awareness. And then the space around you stills, not with emptiness, but with expectation. Something is coming. Not a being, not a sound, but a presence. Ancient, still, total. It does not speak in words. It does not arrive in light. It simply asks. The Forbidden Manual calls this moment the soul's last question. But you won't hear it with ears. You won't even understand it with your mind. You'll feel it, deep in the core that remains when everything else has been stripped away. What have you become? That's it. No judgment, no instruction, just the purest inquiry the soul will ever face. And here's the truth. The question isn't for information. It's for alignment. It doesn't want an answer. It is the answer. What you are, right now, in this very moment, is your response. If you are fragmented, clinging, hollow, the space reflects that, and your journey continues. If you are still, aware, whole, the space welcomes you, as an equal, as a sibling of the source. This is not a test of morality. It's a resonance check. You either match, or you don't. There are no lies here. You can't fake your way through it. You can't say, I tried my best, or I meant well. All those stories fall away. What remains is what you've become. Some souls begin to tremble here, not because they are being punished, but because they finally see themselves without distortion, and it is overwhelming. Others begin to glow, because even though they failed, stumbled, made mistakes, what they became is real, and reality resonates. The space responds, not with reward, not with praise, but with recognition. And when the soul is seen, not as a character, not as a construct, but as essence, something beautiful happens. The path reveals itself, not in front of you, but from you. Because at this stage of the journey, the destination is no longer a place, it's a state of being. And whether you rise or return depends entirely on the vibration of your answer. The question has been asked, no words were spoken, yet everything in your being answered. And now, the response arrives. Not as judgment, not as light, but as tone. It begins as a dual vibration. Two frequencies side by side, one high, one low. One beckons toward freedom, the other toward return. And your soul stands exactly in between. This is what the Forbidden Manual calls the decision tone, not because you consciously choose, but because your essence determines what you are ready to experience next. You do not think your way through this choice. You resonate through it. The higher tone, sharp, crystalline, barely audible, draws those who have shed their fear, who carry no unresolved weight, who are willing to dissolve. This tone feels like clarity, surrender, spaciousness. The lower tone, deeper, rounder, familiar, pulls at the parts of you still tethered to form. It speaks in comfort, in repetition, in return. It is the call of rebirth. Neither is wrong, neither is right. They are simply mirrors, and you cannot follow both. This is the final fork. You feel it in your center, not in your thoughts, but in your vibration. The tones do not persuade. They don't convince. They simply are. And your soul leans toward the one it is already closest to. Some try to resist. They hear the higher tone but feel unworthy. They cling to the lower one out of fear, habit, identity. And the tones respond, not with force, but with alignment. Because here, Effort is irrelevant. Only truth remains. The soul that aligns with the higher frequency does not rise, it dissolves. There is no ascent, no celebration, only release, a fading into something vast, formless, eternal. The soul that aligns with the lower tone does not fall, it returns. With new veils, new lessons, new time, a new name, a new forgetting. But within that forgetting, a seed is planted, and if the soul remembered once, it can remember again. The tones do not close behind you. They echo eternally, for they are not doors, they are destinations. And now, in the stillness between frequencies, the final sound waits, not to judge, but to welcome you home, in whatever form that takes. You've heard the tones, you've faced the mirror, you've stood at the edge of the beyond. And now, something ancient stirs. Not forward, not backward, inward. The Forbidden Manual describes this moment as the sound of return. Not a return to life, but to something older. Something deeper than incarnation. Something before memory. And it does not come with fanfare. It comes with recognition. At first you barely notice it. A hum. Gentle and familiar. Like a lullaby from a childhood you never lived. But somehow remember. Then, a note. Pure, singular, resonant. And the moment it touches your soul, you stop searching. Because this sound, unlike all the others, isn't coming toward you. It's coming from you. It always was. This is the sound of your true nature. Unfiltered, unburdened, unchanged. Not the identity you wore, not the lessons you carried, but the core of what you are. There is no struggle, no striving, no final gate, only this sacred melody. It doesn't rise, it doesn't fall, it simply is. And as it flows through your being, you realize you are home. Not a place, not a heaven, not a throne above the stars, but a presence, a space without borders, a stillness without silence. You are not merging with something else. You are remembering yourself. Here, time no longer applies. Karma no longer pulls. Desire no longer burns. The soul has nothing left to become, because it has returned to what it always was. Some call this liberation, others awakening. But the forbidden text whispers a quieter word, completion. And in this state, there are no more questions. Because you are the answer, there are no more sounds. Because you are the source of everyone. And as this final vibration expands beyond self, beyond boundary, beyond language, it sings, not to declare an ending, but to affirm a truth that was always there. You were never lost. You were never broken. You were always on your way. Back to the sound that called you into existence. Back to the stillness that birthed all things. Back to the home that was never elsewhere. Because it was you, all along.